Good evening, Bimblers. Have we all had a nice Christmas? Are we all fed up with Christmas now? I am a bit now. Ready to get back to it. Right, Bimblers, you know it's been quite poor weather of late, hasn't it? This live Bimble was actually supposed to be Lancaster, but if you can imagine it, the weather's been even worse in Lancaster. So I had to make a new Bimble based on the nice weather that we enjoy on the Mersey Valley. Or at least the 2 days that we had nice weather. So this is a Bimble that I'm entitling, How Do You Grow a Pineapple in Orford? Well, let's start, shall we? We have to imagine that it's the morning that I'm stood outside the Blackburn Arms in Orford. Good morning, Bimblers. And you join me outside the Blackburn Arms in Orford in Warrington. Has anyone ever wondered why the Blackburn Arms is called the Blackburn Arms? You might think it has something to do with the town. Well, it actually has something to do with Orford Park round the corner, so I think we should stop messing about and Bimble. What do you reckon? Off we go. So to tell the story, we have to start at the end and work our way backwards for a minute. So Orford Hall became Orford Park in 1916. That was when a Colonel Robert Island Blackburn gifted it to Warrington Borough Council as a war memorial. Seems like a very generous thing to do. Would anyone like to give their house to Warrington Borough Council? Would anybody have gave their house to Warrington Borough Council if it had got your bin emptied over the last few months? Funnily enough, all these posh families that own these big stately homes all seem to donate their houses to local councils at the beginning of the 20th century. That has a lot to do with World War I and not a big generous gesture. You see, a lot of people didn't return from World War I, and a lot of people who did return didn't want to do the jobs that they used to do. Agriculture didn't recover, and posh lads were a bit strapped for cash. But don't feel sorry for the Blackburn family, because they had lots of homes and lots of money. They had another house in Warrington called Fairfield House. That was on Fairfield Street near St Elphin's Park. It's now gone, but it was once the home of an Anne Blackburn, or Anna to her friends and family. More on her as we go. We should also take into account some of the revenue streams that the Blackburn family enjoyed and how they got their wealth and how they got their houses and how they got some of the opportunities that they enjoyed as well, seemingly guilt-free. Orford Hall was rented to William Beaumont, the first mayor of Warrington, and before that to a Lucy Hornby. Her grandson, Edmund Hornby, became the first MP for Warrington in 1832. The second MP for Warrington was John Island Blackburn. That was in 1835, another one of the Blackburns. That raises a point about the Blackburn family. Most of them were called either John, Jonathan or Thomas, and it makes telling this tale quite difficult because it's difficult to say who we're talking about. So I just advise you not to think about which John, Jonathan or Thomas I'm talking about. They're just a big gang of lads. The other thing that makes it confusing is each one of them was all High Sheriff of Lancashire, so you can't even point to one of them and go, oh, that was John Blackburn, the High Sheriff of Lancashire, because every John Blackburn was the High Sheriff of Lancashire. You go back through all of those Johns, Jonathans and Thomases and you get to a Thomas Blackburn who purchased Orford Hall in 1638, and he purchased it from a lad called Thomas Tildesley, and he purchased it from the Norris family, and they moved in 1232, and that's why you have Norris Street just round the corner from Orford Park. Thomas Blackburn had a son called Jonathan, who was the High Sheriff of Lancashire, and Jonathan had a son called John, who was the High Sheriff of Lancashire. John holds the distinction of growing one of the first pineapples in the UK, at least the first pineapple to be grown in the north of the UK. He had a special hothouse on Orford Park. Seems like a minor achievement, but it would have cost you 60 quid to grow a pineapple back then. Would anyone pay 60 quid for a pineapple? That's 60 quid in 1700s money as well. So growing a pineapple back then, if you adjust for inflation, would have cost you about 10 grand. Pineapples were so highly prized, it was considered wasteful to eat one. And there were actual people that used to rent you a pineapple so that you could put it on your table at a party. To grow one, you had to have a coal-fired hothouse, and that boiler needed stoking 24/7. Growing a pineapple was a flex back then. It was like leasing a BMW or doing your big shop in the co-op. There's actually a portrait of John Blackburn in Warrington Museum, and if you look at him, he's got his hand like that. It's because he was originally painted with a pineapple in his hand. And they obviously painted out the pineapple because no one wants a picture of the granddad holding a pineapple, do they? John had a son named Thomas, who was the High Sheriff of Lancashire, and he had a son called John. And John was the MP for Lancashire. That was in 1784, as well as being the High Sheriff of Lancashire. John Pineapple John, he had another son named John, and he became the Mayor of Liverpool. They also had a son named Ashton Blackburn, who moved to New York and became an ornithologist. You see, he didn't have the right name. He needed to be John, Jonathan or Thomas to become the High Sheriff of Lancashire. Ashton is actually his mother's maiden name. So the Blackburn family married into the Ashton family. And they lived at Orford Hall, which is now Orford Park. They've now gone, but Orford Park is now home to one of Warrington's hippest swingers. You might have seen her if you go there. Big round of applause for Molly Gallimore, my executive producer. She was in this afternoon. She fell asleep in the back with me, Dad cuddling her. But she enjoyed the round of applause she got then. Right, so that was Orford Park. I think we should mosey on down to another part of Warrington that has something to do with the Blackburn family. And as we go, we may as well sing us a song, mightn't we? We may as well finish that one that started before called Maybe It Worked. Let's give it a go. Maybe it didn't work at the time. Maybe it never did. A mistake that made the distance, or a trying way to live. Or maybe it's the time that you grabbed at my arms and electricity flowed from my shoulders to palms in a white hot glow, leaving white cold scars left bare and unshowed just to prove they were ours. Maybe it worked. Maybe it never did. Maybe it never was quite like how it is. Maybe it didn't work at the time. Maybe it never did. A novelty improvement left lonely as it gives. Or maybe it's the time that you closed both your eyes and you pouted your lips as you waited for mine in the soft red glow of your soft cold arms. Serotonin burns holes through my veins to my heart. Maybe it worked. Maybe it never did. Maybe it never was quite like how it is. Or maybe it's the time that I wanted to say that my limbs won't move more than 2 feet away from your day glow side. Luminescent sparks, I could burst into flames from one beat from your heart. Maybe it worked. Maybe it never did. Maybe it never was quite like how it is. Maybe it worked. Maybe it never did. Maybe it never was quite like how it is. Not quite like how it is. Nearly there, Bimblers. Almost there. There we go. This is the Sankey Canal, aka the Sankey Brook Navigation, aka the St Helens Canal. It was the first canal of the Industrial Revolution, you see. There was a French canal called the Canal de Midi, or to give it its name before the French Revolution, the Canal Royal en Languedoc. It was dug in order to move wheat around France, so it was agricultural and not industrial. There are people that say the Bridgewater Canal is the first canal in the UK, but that's due to semantics, you see. The Sankey Canal is known as the Sankey Brook Navigation, which implies that it's just a straightened out river, which it's not. If you go to Sankey Valley Park, you can see they're two completely different things, aren't they? It does use the Sankey Brook in places, but for the most part they're separate. You've got to give it to the Bridgewater Canal though, there's no rivers near that at all. It goes in between two rivers, the Irwell and the Mersey. The Sankey was opened in 1757 and it links St Helens to Warrington. So why would they link St Helens to Warrington? Well, it's all to do with coal. The Elton Head family found a seam of coal in 1540. They found it accidentally because they were digging for some clay pits. And that kicked off coal mining in St Helens in a place called Sutton Heath. They built a turnpike road to get the coal out of St Helens, but the premiums were sky high, so that made the price of coal very expensive. You couldn't grow a pineapple without it, could you? You needed that coal. And you couldn't do all kinds of industrial processes as well. The Blackburn family invested heavily. Also, a John Ashton invested. Remember that John Blackburn, Pineapple John, married into the Ashton family. He married a Catherine Ashton, and that's John Ashton's daughter. John Ashton owned 51 of the 120 shares that were in the Sankey Canal, so he wanted all that coal for his businesses, which were the same businesses that the Blackburns were into. More on that in a bit. The Sankey Canal was engineered by a fellow called Henry Berry. That's 16 locks, 16 miles of canal and everything that went with it. Henry Berry also designed some of the docks in Liverpool. In particular, one dock that takes its name from one of the Blackburns' main business ventures, a business venture that John Ashton shared with them. Don't let this bit of the Sankey Canal that we're about to see on this bimble fool you. Most of it hasn't got any water in it. But the bit that we're going to bimble down right now has quite a lot of water in it. It looks quite nice. I'm a nuisance with writing songs, so I've got to retune my guitar now to play the next song. This song that we're going to do while I'm moseying down the road on my bike is called Anywhere But Home. Pack the boat, lace your shoes, other skies are calling. Cut the nets, bring cigarettes, another place is coming soon. Throw the phones into the waves, into the seas we're roaming. Close the books and close the doors, another place is wanting you. You decide which way to go, and when we're tired that place is home. But who cares where we're going? I know that there's no way of knowing. I know where we're going, anywhere, anywhere but home. Feel the warmth across your neck, ride the wave that's falling. Feel the nerves are growing back, another burden set to lose. Break the night with cigarettes, another warmth is calling. Shake to life with no regrets, another burden. You decide which way to go, and when we're tired that place is home. But who cares where we're going? I know that there's no way of knowing. I know where we're going, anywhere, anywhere but home, anywhere, anywhere but home. You decide which way to go, and when we're tired that place is home. But who cares where we're going? I know that there's no way of knowing. I know where we're going, anywhere, anywhere but home, anywhere, anywhere but home, anywhere, anywhere but home. very much. Does anyone recognise where we are? We're at Spike Island. Very near, it's just across. So while we're at Spike Island, we should talk about some of the Blackburn's businesses that they were involved in. Initially, they were involved in selling tallow. Tallow is animal fat. You could use tallow to soften fabrics. That was very useful in Manchester, or Cottonopolis as it was known. You could use it to make candles, to light up your gaff. No paraffin yet, that didn't come until 1830. You could use it for cooking. Pig tallow is called lard, and beef tallow is just beef dripping, isn't it? And oddly, considering you wouldn't like to smell of lard or beef dripping, they also used tallow to make soap. And that would have been used heavily in Warrington and over in Runcorn and at Spike Island in Widnes. It was tallow that funded the big house in Orford, but the big bucks came with salt. Both the Blackburns and the Ashtons were very deep into the salt trade. Prepare for my Cheshire salt spiel. That's easy for me to say. Back before the T-Rex and the Triceratops, many millions of years ago, back before the bin strike started, the Mersey Valley was a desert on the equator, and Cheshire was a salty sea to the side of that desert. As you can imagine, the desert was quite hot, and the water in that sea started to evaporate off. The water disappeared over millions of years, and the sea got saltier and saltier, and some of the sand from the desert blew in. That eventually formed rock salt, and over millions of years, more sand covered it over, some soil and some vegetation. The tectonic plate shifted away from the equator, and it all ended up in Widnes. The Romans discovered those salt reserves, and it's probably why the Romans liked Chester so much, because they could just come down the River Dee and pop over to Cheshire to have a go on some of the salt. The Romans loved salt so much that that's where we get the word salary from. That's because they used to pay the soldiers in salt. It's also where you get the turn of phrase, worth his salt. That salt was rediscovered 1600 years later, give or take a few years. And the salt was still highly prized. It was dug out of the ground and stuck onto boats called Mersey Flats and taken to various salt houses. The rock salt was mixed with water so that the salt would dissolve in the water. The sand would be sieved off, and then you would boil the whole mixture so the water would boil off, and you'd just be left with delicious salt. It's a way of producing salt that we don't do anymore. I mean, you have sea salt. They make a lot of that in Australia, and they use the power of the sun because it doesn't rain very much over there, but you can't do that, around Widnes and Warrington and Runcorn and Northwich and things. So you have to use coal to boil off the water, and the coal came from St Helens and Wigan and Lee and Bolton, hence why there's all those canals around those places. These days they make table salt via chemical process. It's sodium and chlorine to make sodium chloride. Salt is practically free. You could go and walk into Wetherspoons down there, grab a big handful of salt and just scarp her. I've done that many times when I've gone camping. Just need some salt, I'll just go and pinch some from Wetherspoons. Anyway, that was one of the Blackburn's main businesses. I think we should bimble now after I've retuned again to one of their other homes. And whilst we're on the way, we'll have one of the Bimblism classics. It's the song that I always put on when we're going down a river, because the first couple of words in the song mention a river. It's as simple as that. It's called Take Off Your Shoes.
Washed and clean by a riverside, they told you the news. kept so cold in the blackest tide. If only you knew. Well, I've heard what they said, ignored what I read, and looked to the bright side. So here's to the bad times, forgotten in good lives. I won't let you down. I'll take off my shoes and dance to the good news. Broken smiles and they won't turn it round. So take off your shoes, dance to the good news. Left too long in the passing time. You know what you know to be true. Dim lit scenes of a better life. Spoken in loud tones to you. Well, I heard what they said, ignored what I read, and looked to the bright sides. So here's to the bad times, forgotten in good lives. I won't let you down. I'll take off my shoes and dance to the good news. Broken smiles, no, they won't turn it round. So take off your shoes and dance to the good news. I won't let you down. I'll take off my shoes and dance to the good news. Broken smiles, no, they won't turn it round. So take off your shoes and dance to the good news. Take off your shoes and dance to the good news. Take off your shoes and dance to the good news.
Thank you very much. And so, Bimblers, we reach Hale. For a village with seemingly nothing going on, Hale had it all going on in the past. It was the most southerly point of Lancashire before it became the borough of Halton. And it features a lighthouse, even though it's 10 miles inland. It looks over the widest point of the River Mersey, and you can see Ellesmere Port and Stanlow Oil Refinery, and you can see Frodsham and the mouth of the River Weaver. That's where all the salt comes from. It was another home to the Blackburn family, or the Island Blackburn family in this case. It was originally home just to the Island family, but a Thomas Blackburn, High Sheriff of Lancashire, 1763, married one of the Island daughters. Hale is also home to John Middleton, who was reported to be 9'3" tall. Sir Gilbert Island was the man that took 9'3" John Middleton down to London to fight the King's champion wrestler, and he beat him by breaking the King's champion wrestler's thumb, and the King gave him 20 quid for beating him. That was when 20 quid was 20 quid. Sir Gilbert Island didn't have any heirs, so nobody inherited Hale Hall, so it was passed down to the Blackburns. And Hale Hall became home to the Island Blackburns up until the 1930s. The hall's now gone, and all that remains is a big walled garden. It was the brainchild of John Blackburn, that's Pineapple John, and his daughter Anne, or Anna to her friends. The large walls were to block the wind coming off the River Mersey, and they were hollow so that they could be attached to the furnaces of the house. And all the hot air was fed into the voids, and that meant that they could grow some tropical plants in the garden. Anne, or Anna to her friends, became a noted botanist in her own right. Her collection of plants and thoughts on botany were sought after by noted naturalists of the day. That's naturalists, not naturists. Two different things. One's much more drafty than the other. Johann Reinhold Forster encouraged her to publish her findings, and Mr. Forster and his son George were the naturalists, that's naturalists, not naturists, on Captain Cook's second voyage of the Pacific. And whilst they were there, they discovered a little yellow bird, and they named it the Blackburnian warbler after Anna. They also find a special genus of beetles that you can only find on the islands of Hawaii, and they called those Blackburnia beetles. Next to Hale Hall and all of its grandeur would have been one of those salt houses. Originally it was bought at auction in Liverpool from somewhere called the Merchant's Coffee House. That was on the 29th of December 1746. But it wasn't bought by the Blackburn family. It was bought by the Ashton family. That's John Ashton, the fellow that owned all those shares in the Sankey Canal and whose daughter married John Blackburn, Pineapple John. The salt works was called the Dungeon Salt Works. Dungeon not having anything to do with castles and prisoners and whips and chains and stuff. It came from Old English. It was the word denge, meaning marshland. That's how you get Dungeness in Kent, same thing. Incidentally, we will pass Dungeon Lane as we pass through Speke near the airport, but it's rather been swallowed up by the airport, and someone's pinched the road sign that says Dungeon Lane. I think it might have been a goth. If I was goth, I would want a sign that said Dungeon Lane on it, you know. Anyway, it's time to bimble. And it's time to get into another different tuning. Standard tuning, though, this time. One day I'll have multiple guitars for doing this, and I'll have a little man that comes out the back and just hands me these lovely guitars. This is another Bimblism favourite. This is the track that I always use when we're going a long way and I need quite a long track to use. It's called Figure It. Talk all your thoughts on your mind, are you listening? You still won't figure it out. Figure it. With all your thoughts on your mind all the time, oh it's deafening. You still won't figure it out. Figure it. But with a simple frame of mind and a little time, you can protest all you like. We both know, with goodwill on your side and a little time, you can have just what you like. We both know things could be easy if you just try. You could be better off this time. Have it your own way if you like. Things could be easy if you just try. I know you heard every word, every line, but you're missing it. Why won't you figure it out? Figure it. Though I talk really loud, have you heard? Oh, it's deafening. You still won't figure it out. Figure it. But with a simple frame of mind and a little time, you can protest all you like. We both know, with goodwill on your side, with a little time,
just what you like. We both know things could be easy if you just try. You could be better off this time. Have it your own way if you like. Things could be easy if you just try. It could be easy if you just try. You could be better off this time. Have it your own way if you like. Things could be easy if you just try. It could be easy if you just try. You could be better off this time. Have it your own way if you like. Things could be easy if you just try. It could be easy if you just try. You could be better off this time. Have it your own way if you like. Things could be easy if you just try. Ooh.
Thank you very much. And so we reach Garston, L19, Liverpool. The name comes from Old English. It means grazing settlements. No farms these days, though, you see. Agriculture gave way to industry. Garston had Brighton and Main Matchworks, and it was also known for making cotton bobbins. Garston Docks was the docks that all the timber came to in Liverpool. That's maple and ash from Canada. But it's not how it started. It all came to be for a salt works. That was a salt works opened in Liverpool, the second salt works, by the Blackburn family. They were instrumental in building Garston Docks, and that's why they get a street named after them. Before there was a skate park, and just over the road from the church, that's St Michael's Church, no sniggering, there was a pub called the Cock and Trumpet. What's the link between the Blackburns and a cock and a trumpet? Well, on the family crest, the coat of arms of the Blackburn family, you'll find a cock and a trumpet. That's a cockerel and a trumpet. In 1792, another one of the John Blackburns, son of a John Blackburn, bought Garston and made himself Lord of the Manor, which made him free to do whatever he chose. Not only because he was Lord of the Manor, but also because he was the Mayor of Liverpool, could do whatever he liked. The Blackburns moved the salt works here to Garston after numerous complaints about the original salt works, which is our next and final portage. The River Mersey is pretty salty anyway in Liverpool. It's what you call brackish, and they've always struggled to find fresh drinking water. Hence the many water towers and a pipeline bringing water from Lake Vyrnwy in Wales. Please go to the next one. No. Don't start not working now. Anyway, that problem was made much worse by the Blackburn salt making activities. Here in Garston, the salt works killed all the fish. Garston had been known as a place for fish. The Benedictine monks of St Michael's Church, just over the road from the Cock and Trumpet pub, they would have earned their money catching and selling fish. You gonna work? Yay! Not so after the salt works opened. Obviously the monks had long gone. Nobody was fishing there. Garston was known for shrimps, and it was said to be second to none. It's a problem that was shared by our last location, and the Blackburn's crowning glory and biggest shame. So I think we should bimble. We don't have to retune for this bimble either. It's all in the same place. We're going to do a song called Smiles Like Alice Buns, if it decides to work.
When the weeks fly by but the days they drag, because you're wanting something that you've never had. It's a smile as wide as your Alice band, when you got what you need but not what you plan. Come with me, down the stairs and out the door, down the streets and into the cities you wanted to before, onto trains like caravans. Take off your coats and into the sea as quick as you like, but you won't catch me. Well, if it's all you want, then it's all you'll have. When you've wanted more than anyone could ask, feel free to recommend. All that you want is yours in the end. Come with me, down the stairs and out the door, down the streets and into the cities you wanted to before, onto trains like caravans. Take off your coat and into the sea as quick as you like, but you won't catch me. No, you won't catch me. Come with me, down the stairs and out the doors, down the streets and into the cities you wanted to before, onto trains like caravans, onto trains like caravans, buses, bikes and builders' vans. Take off your coat and into the sea as quick as you like, but you won't catch. Take off your coat and into the sea, onto trains like caravans. Take off your coat and into the sea. Take off your coat and into the sea, onto trains like caravans. Take off your coat and into the sea as quick as you like, but you won't catch me. Take off your coat and into the sea as quick as you like, but you won't catch me. Onto trains like caravans. Take off your coat and into the sea as quick as you like, but you won't catch me. Take off your coat and into the sea as quick as you like, but you won't catch me.
Thank you very much. And so at last we reach our destination, Bimblers. It's one of my favourite rides. I'm not too keen on the roads of Garston, but it's nice at that bit in Otter's Pool, isn't it? It's roughly 24 miles, much quicker if you're not filming and walking around the streets and walking through the mud getting all this B-roll footage. This is Salthouse Dock. It's the dock just to the rear of the Albert Dock, as you can see, the Tate Modern. It's named after a salt house that had been there since 1696. That salt house was erected by John Blackburn and his father, John Blackburn. That's Pineapple John. I told you there was going to be a lot of Johns, Jonathans and Thomases, didn't I? The salt house was there some 50 years before the building of the dock. And as we said, the dock was designed and built by Henry Berry. just across the road from the dock, you would have had Salthouse Lane, that's where the Salt House was, and you would have had Orford Street, that's named after the Blackburns' posh house in Orford Park. They're both gone, swallowed up by the road and a big Ibis hotel. If you remember, I told you how the Blackburns were forced to move into Garston because they polluted. And they polluted round here just as much. There used to be a well on Orford Street, and that was rendered useless. All by the Blackburn Salt House. That would have been from all the plumes of smoke coming out of it, from coal and steam and salty saline seeping into the ground. That's not the only harmful, thoughtless thing the Blackburns did in order to earn all their money and grow their pineapples, though. They used the docks for much more shameful activities, by modern standards at least. If you're going to be dealing in salt, coal, cotton, sugar, tobacco, copper, little tiny glass beads, anything, you were at least facilitating the slave trade. You may not have sold your salt for slaves, but a merchant in Liverpool would do it for you. They'd take that salt over to the port of Bonny in what we call Nigeria today, and that salt was traded for slaves. Those slaves would have been took over the Atlantic either to America and traded for cotton, or over to Jamaica and traded for sugar. That cotton or sugar, or both, was brought back to Liverpool and then sold, or possibly traded for some more salt, and the whole thing repeated. The Blackburn family decided that they wanted to cut out the middleman and just diversify into the slave trade. John Blackburn and his son, John Blackburn, became part owners of a ship called the Swan. Who were the other terrible men that were embroiled in this awful behaviour, though? It would be a Thomas Crowder. He was a merchant with dealings in Jamaica, and according to the Leeds Intelligentsia, he died in 1780 with his black servant of 20 years by his side. He was joined by a Joseph Manistee. He was a plantation owner in Jamaica, and he had a fleet of ships, and he lived on Manistee's Lane in Liverpool. That's where the Waterstones is today. He lived on a street named after himself. He lived there for 4 years, and when his lease was up, someone else renewed it, and that was John Ashton of Dungeon Salt Works and investor in the Sankey Canal, and John Blackburn, Pineapple John's father-in-law. They were joined by Richard Savage of the Savage family. The Savage family are Rock Savage in Runcorn. That's what that's named after. And they owned a lot of land in Cheshire, which probably stood on top of a load of salt. The last of the motley crew was a John Tarleton, another merchant with dealings in Jamaica. He was such a bad man that in 1764 they made him the mayor of Liverpool and named a street after him, Tarleton Street. And lest we forget, the younger of the John Blackburns was also the mayor of Liverpool. That's Pineapple John's son. That group of men ran 16 slave expeditions using the Swan, starting in Liverpool, travelling to Bonny in Nigeria, then over the Atlantic to Jamaica. On each voyage there was 238 enslaved Africans, of which 40 to 50 would have died on the journey. That's 3,000 people and up to 800 dead. And that's just on the voyages on the Swan. They had another boat called the Blackburn, and that did a further 3 voyages, so that brings up the total, because it was a bigger ship, to 4,000 slaves and possibly 1,000 Africans that died on the way. And they wouldn't have took them to the port and buried them somewhere, and they wouldn't have buried them at St Oswald's Church like all of the Blackburn family are buried. They would have just chucked them in the sea. That's how you afford to grow a pineapple in Orford in the 1700s. All a bit of a downer, that, isn't it? I'm sorry. But for the world's first live bimble, that's a bit of a downer, so I thought I'm going to have to throw something in at the end that's much more bimblism. So, you know, like a post box. At Salthouse Stocks, you have a very rare post box known as the Liverpool Special. It was designed by the postmaster at the time, and next month it's going to be 161 years old. That's a proper bimblism ending right there, isn't it? There we go. Thank you very much. I think we'll have a short intermission so everyone can get a drink and do ones and twos and whatever. And we'll meet back for another video on some songs and some questions, yeah? See you in a bit.